All right, let's talk about tuning, shall we? In particular, let's talk about snare drums in the beginning. I get asked this question while I'm teaching, on videos, on Instagram, at shows. Man, the drum was tuned way up, and then all of a sudden it was the same drum and it sounded super fat. How do you do that so quickly? To me, I think people overthink this a little bit too much. Oh, we got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. Yeah, there's a basic way to seed ahead, and I'll show you that. But you got to also really use your ears. People kind of space out about, oh yeah, what does it sound like, as opposed to what they watched on YouTube. Okay, so I'm gonna try to make it very simple for you to get a few, like really three different sounds. Get that low, fat sound, kind of the middle of the road sound you could use for almost anything, and then the cranked up kind of pop sound. Okay. Let's just hear where this drum is right now. This is my signature George Way snare. Really proud of this drum. It's acacia. It's 2-ply with a 2-ply reinforcement ring, and it's 7 deep by 14 wide. And this has a Remo Diplomat fiber skin on the top. I really like this head on this drum. It's a little warmer than like a coated Ambassador would be. It's a little less zingy, shall we say, and it goes really nicely with the dark cymbals that I have. It blends for my sound. I would also recommend just a coated Ambassador from Remo is great, and also the CS Reverse Dot coated head from Remo is a really great snare head as well. If you're maybe hitting a little harder, I use that snare head at Lion King because I'm hitting pretty hard most of the night on that gig. So let's just see where this is right now. I don't know. I haven't tuned it. I just sat down. This is probably from the last time I was recording. Let's just see where it is. I'll turn the snares on. Sounds pretty good, right? So let's say this is your middle of the road tuning, okay? And when you first put on a snare head, before we jump into everything, it's gonna be brand new, it's gonna crack, it's gonna make noises. I put it on and I crank it as tight as I can. I'll finger tighten all the lugs so they're tight, and then I'll go around and do a couple turns across from each other, right? And bring it up to really as tight as it can go, and I push in the middle, gets everything set, gets all the cracks and the glue and everything to set. And just from that, you're gonna hear that the snare drum's a little bit higher. This snare drum's almost like cheating because I literally have never heard it sound bad. I still have yet to find a tuning range where it doesn't sound great. So speaking of that, let's say we're playing a groove, right? We're here, right? And we've just been playing. Right? We've been playing something like that. That sounds great. Now, let's say I'm playing with somebody and they all of a sudden are going into like a slow boom, boom, boom. I want like a really, really loose, wide snare thing, okay? So what would I do? Immediately my brain would turn the snares off, okay? Get it so it sounds like a tom, and get this thing to sound like a floor tom. So I'm gonna just start tuning down one kind of half turn on each lug. And some of them you can feel are tighter. You know, I really go by feel. Just, you can tell this one's almost totally loose, and this one is still pretty tight. So I'm gonna just do this by feel and see how I can get it. See if I can get it really close to being very low. And you'll probably see some wrinkles and stuff pop up. Let's check this out. These two. It's pretty good by just guessing. Or I should say, I'm not guessing, I'm going by the feel. Really, your hands get very aware of the tension of each lug. I can almost tune it in pitch just by the tension I can feel off the key. So you can hear this is higher. Okay, so that's rattling. Hear that rattle? So this side, you can hear is a little higher. That sounds, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that's gonna be a nice fat snare sound. Thump, okay? Now the thing, as you tune the snares lower, for me, I like to loosen the snares. So they're very floppy, okay? I want them to be very, very loose. This will probably be pretty close. Again, by feel. Woo! That sounds good. So much tone. Do you hear how much tone that's giving off? Very good drum, I'm just saying. All right, so those snares are a little too loose. That's a little bit better. I love that sound. So let's say you want to maybe get a little bit rid of that ring. Although it sounds cool. So a couple things you can do. You can use like a rag. Got these cool rags from Tackle Instruments. And you can either put the whole thing, this will completely deaden it if you just put the whole thing over it, right? Maybe that's a little too much. Maybe you just want to make a little, you know, towel, put it on the edge. Also, you can get these clips. They're just like little, for like paper and stuff, paper clip. Keep it there. That's a great sound. Love the low tuning. Different, use like a handkerchief, right? Put that whole thing. This is a little different material. Let's hear the difference. Pretty nice. Haha, back to this. just in 2 seconds. Way more tone out of that, right? You take the dampening off, it's wide open. It lets you really get quiet too. Really makes you play a specific way. I love that. That's one of my favorite tunings is like that. So now let's say we're going from that to like, gotta play like a tight funk pocket thing and go way up. So quickly, if the guys or gal you're playing with is like, hey, let's play this tune, I'm literally just gonna go around opposite, crank, okay? And it's not like we're tuning to a pitch. So we should be pretty up at this point. I'm gonna tighten the snares. 2. So now we're here. I didn't sit around and do this. Although I'm hearing they're lower, I'll show you in a second. But quickly, if they're in a tune now, I'm ready. Totally different sound. Again, take this technique. I mean, it's a totally different feel from 3 seconds ago. That'll make you play completely different stuff than the super loosey-goose, trashy thing. Now you can mute the whole thing. Three different snare sounds very quickly. So now we've just been talking about the top head, which is out of tune. Let's listen to this. So if you really want to get, finicky, this is lower than this. So now you could either choose to bring this up to this, because this is higher, a little bit. So this should be pretty dead on. It'll also be a little bit higher. All right, so now that we got through the snare, 3 different tunings, let's move on to a tom-tom, okay? This is a very beautiful kit I had made. Ron Dennett made it. It's under the George Way style with the lugs and everything. Wood hoops, very cool kit. And so bottom heads, I typically use a Remo Diplomat Clear. Sometimes I'll use a Diplomat Coated. And I just like to keep the bottom head kind of thin. Sometimes the coating will mellow out the sound a little bit. If you want a little less resonance, I would go with the thicker head. So bottom head, as you can hear, is totally dead. Okay. With the bottom, I don't mess with the bottom heads very often. I get them to a point where they seem really comfortable. If you crank them too high, the drum chokes out, and if it's too low, it sounds like this. Not great. So slowly, I'm gonna just do little, like a half a turn on each guy. So already we have a bunch of different pitches. So that's way higher, so start bringing that up. So you can hear the difference, right? I can't stress this enough. Really listen. Don't just kind of randomly go around and tune them and then say, oh man, the drum doesn't sound good. It's because you're not putting in the effort. You really got to put the effort in and you'll get great results. Just really listen. Even that's a little lower. So that's a pretty nice note. Use a mallet. And I'll push in the center to stretch the head out. It'll drop in pitch now. Probably dropped a little bit. So now I'll crank it up and you'll hear a lot of the resonance goes away. So now we're kind of in that jazz tuning, which is fine if all you're playing is that cranked old school jazz sound, but I like a little bit more tone, especially out of this kit. I have different kits that kind of sit in different spots well. This kit sounds really good kind of anywhere, but I tend to have this one middle tuning, not super high, not super low, just resonant, and that's what I'm gonna go for with this tom. So I'm gonna bring this back down a little. See how just stretching that dropped it back down? So that's a good place to start. And the wood hoops are a little bit more finicky than just the regular like triple flange hoops or something. So these take a little bit more finesse. You can't really wail on them too hard, but they have a beautiful sound. That's real even, okay? So let's start there. Let's check out the top head. This is a Remo coated Ambassador. Let's see where I have it. This has been played in a little bit. It's kind of funny. It's almost the same pitch as the bottom. It's the exact. It's a little bit higher. So let's just listen. Sounds really good. So if you want to just even note, boo, I would tune the top head and the bottom head the same. If you tune the top head lower, you get that do, and it kind of bends down. If you tune it higher, you're just kind of getting this top head tone more than the bottom. So let's put this thing on a stand. This dude is real low. That's cool for this purpose. Okay. That sounds really good where I'm at. Let's do it with some sticks. So that's a nice middle of the road sound. Right? So if we, we'll leave a little bit of this on for muffling. Great sound. Let's say I want it to be a little bit more pancaked, right? I can take 2 of these lugs, or even just one on this drum maybe. Maybe I'll take this one. Maybe I'll get this one involved too. Okay, so that's what you don't want right there. Got that real flappy thing. You hear that? Real papery. Tone's back. Starts to creep in right there. So mess around, play with this stuff. See how subtle that turn is on my hand? Now it's farty. Now it's not. Okay, so let's take the whole thing down a little bit. It's kind of nice, actually. It's not perfect, but it's kind of got a vibe to it, which is fun. You don't always have to have it perfectly in tune. Sometimes the weird overtones make you play different. That's a lot more beef to it. I could put a little gel on there, get a little bit more muted, or I could put a little towel, really muted up, right? Now let's say this snare is a little cranked up, right? These two kind of don't go together to me. Maybe I want the snare drum to be a lot looser. So a really quick trick, take the lugs close to you, just do one, kill it. That's not bad. Still too high though for me. I'm gonna kill the one next to it completely. That's a little bit better to me. I'm also gonna loosen the snares. Kind of a dope sound together. Let's bring it back up. It's a great sounding tom. You want that jazz thing? I'm not messing with the bottom head. I'd crank the top head. So I just went around each lug, half turn. Let's see where we're at. Classic jazz sound. about the snares. Totally pure sound. So as you can see, it's really messing around, seeing what each drum is different. The heads react differently. I hope this kind of helps, these little tricks. Detuning one, like again on the snare, we're here. I'll crank those 2 lugs that I detuned back up and we should be pretty tight. And there we are. Again, you could take a rag, put it over the tom. Now you're in the tone killer. Kill the snare too. Let's move on to the kick drum. All right, we've done the snare, we've done a tom. The floor tom is kind of the same as a rack tom. Again, I tune the bottom head for pitch, kind of in the middle zone where it's kind of getting the most natural tone. And then I adjust the top head same as I did on the rack tom. So the kick drum, this is a 14 by 20 inch Australian Blackwood kick. It's a George Way bass drum. I have a Diplomat fiber skin on both sides. I like that sound, that open bass drum sound. The 20-inch kick drum that I have with a hole in it, to me, that's really just based on feel. To get that punchy kick sound, you could literally put almost any head on there. You throw a pillow in and the head almost becomes irrelevant because the front head is no longer resonating. The batter head isn't resonating, and really the only subtle thing that you might be able to notice is if it's a clear versus a coated head. A clear head's going to have a little bit more attack, okay, and a coated head's going to be a little bit softer. But the bass drum beater has a way bigger effect than really the head. That's just when you have a pillow, when you're muting something in the bass drum. I like an open sounding bass drum because I have more opportunity to change it on the fly. You can take, again, these little handkerchiefs or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something if you have it, and you can mute this side of the head. So right now, let's just listen. This is open, tuned kind of medium low. It's got a great even sound. I'm using a very soft beater. It's one of these, like, I'll just show it. I'll show you. I'm using one of these really soft, kind of big cotton ball beaters. It has, to me, it has a little softer sound. That's the whole point of it. A really hard beater on this kind of sound seems a little strange to me. It's a little too much attack. It's a little too bright. This has a nice soft thing. So, again, you can crank up just a few lugs and get a very different sound quickly. So different. Now you're kind of in that almost jazz bass drum sound without even touching the front head. To me, I really like that lower open sound. That's cool, but if I'm gonna go for that, I'll just do an 18-inch bass drum with 2 coated ambassadors tuned up. That's just the kind of classic jazz tone sound. But for kind of that middle, it's not dead, it's not jazz, I really like that middle of the road sound. So I'm gonna bring it back down. Real even sound. Okay. Now, a little trick you can do if you don't want that much tone and you want it to be a little bit more punch, you can take a little handkerchief or a shirt or whatever, scrunch it up, and I put it in between the 2 posts of the bass drum pedal, and I put it between the post and the head, and it just sits up against the head. So we'll do 1, 2, and now it'll sound like this. It's got that more kind of Motown thing. Let's get out one of my little, again, these tackle towels are rad. Pull them out. I usually just leave one clipped onto my drum, because then you can flip it on, you can flip it off. It's very versatile. So that's that classic, almost like Motown thing. It's a great sound. It's not totally punchy, it's not dead, it's just a nice tone. If you want a little bit more oomph, I detune one. Lower pitch. Let's detune another one, see what happens. Experiment, right? It's pretty big sounding. So it's subtle changes. You know, I like having the full head on the front. I don't like cutting a big hole in it. If I'm gonna do that, I would probably just take off the entire front head anyway. Just kill it. If you just want that mashed potato thump, it's almost just about how you like the feel of the head more so than the tone, because obviously the tone is getting eaten up. But that's a pretty big sounding bass drum. If you've got a live show and the sound guy knows what he's doing, that can sound gigantic. Just 2 lugs. These top 2 lugs. Just tuned them up maybe 1.5 turns. Back to that kind of like old school Motown feel. And it's real warm, and it still has a little bit of tone. So you don't, it just, again, your sound is what really inspires you to play differently. For me, I'm always changing my setups and tunings, and it really leads you down a different road. I would play completely different on this kit as I would on my kit, let's say at Lion King, which is like 10, 12, 14, 16, 22-inch bass drum, kind of tuned dead, really taped up. Kind of more of like a pop, modern sounding kit. Whereas this is a lot warmer to me. I would want to play like with mallets or something on this kit. So let's grab a couple mallets. really leads you down that road. Let's take the muffling totally off the head here. See if you can hear a difference. A lot more tone, the drum's a little louder. But still, it's got a beautiful sound. So for me, that's an open sounding bass drum. The tight punchy one, for me, there's not a lot of tuning or tensioning involved with it. It's more, I would go with feel. So I hope that helps on the kick drum. Let's move on. All right, so now that we've done kick drum and we've tuned each drum individually, let's talk about, it's a drum set, right? It's a set of drums. So for me, I typically like to have everything kind of open. Now this tom I haven't even touched yet. There's a little rattle going on, but that's fine. You're not going to hear that over a band. So again, it's getting it close to where you want it to be. But also having the skill set to tune it exactly how you hear in your head. If I want to tune this thing up and get a jazz sound out of it, the first thing I'm going to do is hear the bottom head, what note it is. So I can tell already that this is lower. And typically you want your floor tom a little bit lower. But go around, do like little quarter to half turns. I mean, those sound really nice together, I can tell already. So when you have the drums open, I tend to want to play a little bit more melodically because you have these notes. You know? You can play like a Love Supreme. You can come up with melodies. Now that I took the muffling off, a little rattly. Just that little bit sounds really different to me. I'll detune one a half turn. So just subtle things. You guys, when you're tuning it, you don't need to go bananas and get super involved. It's just a couple little things really make it happen. So tuning together, now like this is going up in pitch. So the thing that I try to do is make the set sound like it's one unit. I don't want to, it would be like playing a piano and you hit one key as a piano sound and then you move up and it's like a synth keyboard sound and then it's like a clavinet or something in the next note. You want it to sound like one instrument. Typically, I mean, sometimes you go the total opposite direction and mute everything and put jingles on stuff. But for me, doing it this way gives you a really nice base to start. And then you can jump off and put things. You know, let's just try this. Let's see what this sounds like. So immediately that'll make you play different. You're not tuning though, but you're kind of augmenting the kit. So now those kind of turns it into a snare drum almost. So just by putting something as simple as a ching ring, right? A bunch of different companies make these, onto a drum changes it. So it's past tuning at that point and augmenting, but getting the fundamentals of all your tuning together is super helpful with your sound. So I hope this helps on getting your sound together on your kit, and I wish you the best with all of your tuning.